Hi everybody, welcome in. This is Julie Maxon, the main stamper. I am here for my usual live Make It Monday. So I'd like to join you at 8 o'clock on a Monday evening and spend about a half an hour talking to you about a particular card making project and walk you through some different techniques and give you lots of tips and ideas. And tonight we are creating with the painted poppies. So this is our card. Green and yellow, a little bit different. We got some pool party in there too. So the painted poppies has been around for a very long time, and I'm going to actually talk to you about that in a minute. You all may have this stamp set in the dies already because they are very popular, but I thought what a great fitting tribute to use the poppies today. It is Memorial Day, so if you're watching it today on Monday, it's Memorial Day. And of course, we all know that we are honoring those who have lost their lives for our freedoms. And the poppies are a very traditional flower that is used for Memorial Day. So I wanted to use the poppies tonight in our card. Now again, the poppies have been around for forever, and you're probably thinking, why aren't you showing us new stuff? There's so much new product in the new catalog, and we'll get to that. But I really wanted to showcase the poppies. I've got a couple of great techniques that I'm going to show you tonight as well that were a little bit interesting for me as I figured out and puzzled how to put this card together. So without further ado, let's get over to my craft space because we've got a lot to cover tonight. And make sure you are saying hi as you're jumping on. I'd love to know who's watching me today in the craft room. And I see Lori and Jess already, so that's awesome. Perfect. Let me transition. Here we go. There is my workspace. Okay, so we again are using the Painted Poppies stamp set. This is our card, and this is the card that I am casing, which is on page 28 of the new annual catalog. And when I looked at this, this really looks like a dark green. This looks like garden green to me, but it is actually old olive. And I made a couple of changes. The background on this card, if you look at it, has the greenery dye, and I do not have that dye. So I substituted a Whimsy dye, which kind of does the same thing, and we'll talk about that as we get into it. And then as I made this card, I also realized my flowers turned out a little bit differently. Here I used the biggest flower, the medium flower, and the smallest flower. Here in the catalog they've used the two mediums and a small. So I did change it up a little bit. It is always nice to make our own little creative differences, but I like the look of the bigger poppy on this card, so I was really happy with how that all turned out. So I mentioned earlier again that the poppies have been around for forever, and this is a catalog from January to June of 2020, and look at on the cover, it's all about the poppies. So they made their debut in January of 2020, and they are going to be with us through at least this catalog, which is going to end in April of 23. So that's a really long run for a flower set. So it is popular enough that it just keeps going. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the awesome poppies, and then we're going to talk about what else we're using in our card tonight. And there's a lot that goes with this. So when the Painted Poppies came out, they also came out with Peaceful Moments, and they kind of coordinated together. Now, Peaceful Moments is one of my all-time favorite stamp sets. It's got so many great sentiments in it. We're using this one, Life is Better with a Friend Like You, but of course, if you are trying this technique with any kind of flower, maybe you don't have Painted Poppies, maybe you don't have Peaceful Moments, you can definitely recreate this card using different flowers that you have. So, you know, don't feel like you always have to try to mimic everything that I'm doing. I'm trying to teach you different ways you can use what you have. I'm just showing you what I'm actually using. So we've got those two stamp sets. Oh, that's my Simply Chamois. I'm going to need that. We have lots of dies too. So the Painted Labels dies are the dies that actually are going to cut out our poppies. And I have them on just a little magnet sheet here. So I'm going to use these two to cut out our poppies today. I'm using this label die from a die set called Seasonal Labels Dies. And this is actually in with the Christmas items. This was in the Christmas catalog. So that one took me a minute to figure out. So this is from Seasonal Labels. We're using the label from there. And then I'm using the Stitched with Whimsy dies. I'm going to use this big ginormous one. These dies do not actually cut the paper, they just kind of emboss it. So they leave this like stitched and crinkly lines. So hopefully you can kind of see it. It runs around the edge of the paper here. The greenery die is a big die, and it covers the entire surface of the cardstock. I swore up and down that I owned it, but apparently either I don't own it or I can't find it. So I did make a creative change tonight. So let's get busy with what we're going to be working on, because we're also going to be working with embossing paste. So this is the shimmery white embossing paste, and I use this on some different cards. I did some blog posts maybe even a couple of years ago. So if you're looking for more on shimmery white or regular embossing paste, check out my blog. But I opened this up today, you guys, thinking, expecting good things, and when I opened it up, it was all super chunky. Now I added some water to it, I worked it up, so I have some tips on that, but we're going to be using some paste, and as we get going, we're gonna I'll talk to you more about how that all works. But first, I just want to get my flowers stamped and die cut so that we can get that paste down there so that it can dry, and then we'll finish up our card and continue onward. So I'm just going to take, again, the largest poppy flower and then the medium poppy flower. Now there are dies for these, and they also have to be colored in a little bit. And I want just the top of this poppy. I don't need the whole thing, I just need the top of it. And there is not a die for this one, so I'm actually going to be fussy cutting that out. But I wanted to get those guys done and out of the way. Before I do anything else, I'm going to color them in. And I've got my Stampin' Blends. These are the Daffodil Delight, and I've got a light and a dark. I think I'm going to use the dark one on the smaller poppy here. And I'm just going to be doing a really quick coloring job here. I'm going to try to not go too slow so that we can get lots of things in tonight. And again, I use the Memento ink to stamp my image before I am using the Stampin' Blends, because the Stampin' Blends are alcohol, the Memento ink is water-based. So these are opposites, and they work really nicely together. So this one doesn't have that die, but I'm going to do a quick fussy cut. I'm going to get this guy all cut out. Not too bad. He's got just a few little spots that we're going to go around. Okay, so here is my little fussy cut. I'm going to pull in the original card again. So this is the one that I just fussy cut, this little tiny right here. And if I put them side by side, you're probably going to see a huge difference. Maybe not. I'm not sure if the sparkle... Here we go. I'm going to turn it in the light a little bit. See how sparkly they are, my little flowers? That comes from the shimmer paste. So that's a really, really cool technique. All right, let me get the blends going here on the next poppies. And of course, this is a non-traditional color for poppies, right? Most of the time we think of poppies as like a reddish color. And this sample from the catalog obviously is using yellow. So maybe my color swap might be a little more traditional. I'm just saying, you know, you never know where I'm going to go with a color swap on Wednesday over on Positive Paper Crafters. Now I'm just using a little bit of the dark Stampin' Blend right now, and I'm kind of just going around the edges a little bit. And earlier I discovered that my light color Stampin' Blend maybe is a little light on ink. I might have to replace that. So I just wanted to add a little bit to the outside. And the beautiful thing about the Stampin' Blends is you can go over and over again. So I can go back over top of some of these darker lines, and the colors will blend together. And there's no harsh lines where you start and stop. I don't know if you've ever used markers where you start and stop and it leaves those terrible streaks. So the blends are just really super forgiving for that. So you can go over them, you can blend them in. You're going to get some kind of shadings, light and dark. So that is the quick color job on these two beautiful, actually three flowers. And I'm just moving some stuff aside here so that I can bring in my die cutting machine, because I need to die cut my poppies, which is a lot faster, of course, than fussy cutting, so that's always nice. All right, so I've got my two flowers here. I just got a puzzle piece on my dies and make sure I've got them lined up to the outline as needed. Okay, there we go. And as always, the sharp edge, the ridged edge goes down. The flat, smooth edge is up. Got my sandwich all set up for the die cutting, and I'm just going to put these on, and I'm going to hold these a little bit with my fingers until they get closer to the roller. Now obviously you don't want to put your fingers up too close to the roller, but I'm just holding them in place so that they don't wiggle too much. Hopefully we didn't wiggle too much, and if they did, I will go back through and do a little cutting on the side. But this is pretty, not too bad, not too bad. Now this one turned out super well. This one has a little bit more white on the edge than I would like to see. So I'm just gonna come in here real quickly and just take my paper snips. Paper snips are awesome in case you don't have them. They're fantastic. And I just cut away a little bit of that white, so that just gives me a nicer image there. All right, we're gonna work on the paste next. Let me get these things put aside, and we're gonna talk about the paste. So as I mentioned earlier, I haven't used my paste in a super long time. I'm gonna bring in my silicone mat too. So when I opened it up, and I have pictures, I'll be sharing these pictures on Positive Paper Crafters tomorrow for my Tuesday tool tip. So there's this little foam cap that's on the inside of the lid that's supposed to help keep the moisture in, but it didn't really keep the moisture in. I was kind of disappointed. It was very, very dry, like dry and crumbly to the point where I didn't think I'd be able to use it. I am also using the palette knives. So these are a set of 3 that come, and I took this big ginormous palette knife and I just kind of, I chunked up, I actually sliced the middle of the dry stuff, and I added water down into the middle, and I just spent some time, probably 10 minutes, just mixing the water in to the paste. Now along the top right here, as I'm hitting it right here, this is super hard still. I haven't mixed enough water in to make everything usable. I just have enough here that in the middle that I can pull this out, and you're going to see, of course this is the shimmer, so there should be lots of sparkly stuff on it, and you're going to see it on my silicone mat because I used it earlier. Silicone mat is awesome. We're just going to take a little bit on the palette knife, and we're going to just spread this on here, and it's going to leave behind like a little layer of this paste. It's almost like a paste, and it's going to leave the sparkly bits too. So let me lift this up a little bit so you can maybe see the sparklies on it. I'm not sure, but we're going to continue. So I'm just going to go ahead, and you can kind of see the big clump right here, right? So I'm just I'm frosting my flowers. This is what I feel like I'm doing. I'm frosting my flowers with my palette knife, and I'm just making sure that I can see some sparkly stuff, but don't leave too much paste behind. So the paste is actually texture. So there's going to be texture on here as well as the sparkly shimmeries. The smallest one is obviously the most difficult to work with, and he's probably going to have the most paste left on him because it is really hard to get that off. So you may be able to see right now that they are buckling up a little bit with the moisture here. So this paste is kind of making them buckle. I'm just going to scrape this off as best I can. And as I store this, when I'm all done with this tonight, I'm actually going to take some saran wrap, I think, or some wax paper, I'm not sure which, and I'm going to squish this all down and put the saran wrap over top before I put my lid on, and see if that doesn't help to keep it moistened so that it's not super dry. But that is the embossing paste, and I had great success today getting that reworkable with some water. So I did a little quick research. When you're using the paste, you want to make sure you clean up your tools pretty quickly because this will dry kind of like cement. It's going to be pretty harsh. So if I left some on here, it would dry and it would be really difficult probably to get off. So I'm just cleaning up my palette knife a little bit. I'm actually going to set these up and above so that they can continue to dry. And they do dry pretty quickly, but they have a nice little shimmer. And I'm just going to wipe this off just to get the paste off. I'm not really worried about the glitter right now. The glitter is going to come off of here when I run this under some water. So I'm going to have to wash this with some soap and water, but I don't need it for the rest of the evening, so I think I'm good there. And the paste has dried on my fingers a little bit, and it's kind of like hard glue. So the paste really is a thick product, and it will leave a raised edge. It's great with the stencils, lots of different ways that you can use it. So I just wanted to show you a little bit on the paste tonight. Now I do have an old olive card base. I have an old olive extra piece of cardstock. This is 5 3/8 by 4 1/8, so it's almost exactly the size of our card front. It's really close, and the reason that I did that is because I want to bring in my largest die, and this just fits on there, so you can see that it just fits all 4 corners. And I wanted to be able to get this on the cardstock because I don't have the greenery die, which would have provided a really great image all the way around. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in now, and we're going to die cut this. And we're actually not cutting, so remember, this is not a die cutter. This is more of it's kind of like embossing. So I'm just going to run this through the machine. This went through at a very slight angle, so you can see I put it through at just a little bit of an angle. That always helps to get your dies into the machine nicely. And as I take this off, you're going to see that it didn't cut the paper all, you know, it kind of scored it and notched it and gave these great little stitched lines. So that is all this does. It will not cut out your paper. So we've got that done, and next we're going to, well, we still have the big shot out. Let's do our sentiment. So we bring this back in so you can see it again. This is a piece of Pool Party. We've got our sentiment from the stamp set Peaceful Moments, as mentioned earlier. So again, I'm using the Memento ink. I'm just getting that nice and inky. And that's just going to come on here. Life is better with a friend like you. And I'm going to bring in my label die next, and I'm going to go ahead and die cut this, and then we're done with the die cutting machine after that. Let's get this in here one more time. This has quite a few different details to this card tonight. It's not super quick and easy, but just lots of steps. So I'm just getting that centered on. I'm leaving the fancy edge closer to the life, and I'm leaving the U farther away from the other fancy edge, and there's a reason that I'm doing that. I'm not centering it perfectly. I am trying to make sure it's straight, though. That's always nice. You can have that straight on there. All right. That should be the end of Big Shot today. Look at that, the big boss machine. Okay, so put that aside. Now in my card over here, you can see that it's a little bit cut off on the end here. So I've got this round end, which I just did, and then I've got this one over here that's cut off. So I found that it was easiest to just use my paper trimmer. Now I could definitely grab out a pair of scissors and get that done too. I'm trying to see, where can you guys see me best? Right here, I think. Okay, so I'm just going to put this in here. I'm going to look to where I have, I'm going to use this as a pointer here. So right here is the U, and then the little period after U that ends the sentence. So I know that my my trimmer blade is going to go right in this groove right here. So if I use this as a guide, I know that if I cut it right here, I'm not cutting off the U, even though it's hard to tell once you put that little arm down. But that cuts off the end of that, and it's really nice and straight. And you've got this little tiny piece here, which I'm struggling to pick up. So you've got this little piece that we cut off, and now it's nice and straight on one end. So it gives you the design where you've got a nice curve on one end, and it's going to end flat on their card, which is kind of neat. It's definitely different. So if you have the opportunity to use your dies that way, you just get more mileage out of things when you change them up a little bit. All right, let's see what we got going on here. We are going to work on the stamping, and the stamping here is going to require some masking. So there are 3 flowers on the card, and there's 3 different stems here. And when you look at the stamp set, you're going to see one flower that has 2 stems in it. This is it. Like, this is what we're working with for all of our stems. So we're going to get a little creative here, and we're going to change this up with some masking. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp a complete full image. So I've got the flower, and I've got my little cutout that's going to go on top, and I've got the little drooping poppy here, and I've got this whole thing right here, and we're going to just stamp it over here on the end. And I just want to make sure also that I'm coming down close to the bottom so that we're not, the stems aren't floating in the air, right? So that's the first one. I'm just going to cover this up for a second. And somewhere I had my chamois earlier when I was showing you stamps. I'm like, oh, that's my chamois. That's because I need my chamois here to clean off my stamp. Because if I don't clean it off, I can't properly complete my masking technique, which I'm going to be doing next. So I'm going to bring in some painter's tape. You could use washi tape for this too. You could use Post-it notes. I feel like the painter's tape is big enough that it handles things and it's sticky, so it's not gonna, you know, like sometimes Post-it notes don't really stick around long enough to get the job done. So I just masked the top of this flower. I'm going to mask this little tiny stem over here plus the little flower bud. And I'm going to mask this leaf right here. So there's a lot of masking going on. All I'm asking for, please, is one nice stem in the middle. All right, so I'm going to bring my Memento back in. I'm going to ink this up. And I'm going to put a good amount of ink on here because I'm working around the tape, so it's kind of hard for my Memento to get into all those little nooks and crannies. And before I stamp this on my paper, I have to remove every little bit of this mask. So this is all going to come off. My fingers are going to be inky, so I just have to keep that in mind. And I'm just checking to see what I got here. All right, so I'm going to do this one upside down. I'm going to be really creative here. I'm using just the stem, and I'm just making sure the poppy head is down here at the bottom. I'm going to put it right about there. And here I have a second stem. So isn't that clever? Just like that. Now we're going to do this again because we need to have one more stem on this card because we have 3 poppies. So I'm going to just reuse my tape. I'm going to go ahead and get this put back on here. Exactly how I had it the first time is fine, right? I'm covering up the poppy head, the extra little stem, and just leaving the middle stem open, inking it up, lots of ink. Okay, pulling off my tape, and now I'm not going to use my tape again, so I'm all done with it. I'm going to like move it way out of the way, and I'm going to wipe my fingers really quickly because pulling the tape off that has ink on it sometimes creates extra ink on your fingers that you're not aware of. So just keep that in mind. This is kind of a messy procedure, and I'm going to do it right way up this time. So I'm going to do the stem right about here. And now I have the stem for my large poppy, the stem for my medium, and then I've got the small one here. So that all worked by using one stamp. So super clever, right? And we're also going to get this nice leaf in here too. So we're going to bring this in, and we're going to give this guy some leaves over here. I'm going to line him up right about here. Beautiful. So we've got the leaves coming across. So again, if you look at my sample here, you couldn't tell that this wasn't originally part of the whole, you know, it just looks like it was meant to be, right? It doesn't look like I tricked everything into being on this card. Now we're going to go ahead and do a little bit of coloring. I brought in the Old Olive blends, and I only used the dark one actually when I did these stems and leaves. I'm just going to color these in real quick. Now if your black lines didn't reach the bottom completely and you color it in like it reached the bottom completely, the eye is kind of tricked into not knowing that it's not perfect. And that's like one of my favorite things with creative card making is that sometimes we don't notice every little oops or detail because we kind of make it work and fill in as we go, we cover up as we go. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can fix. Now I want to point out again, like this leaf right here is actually floating. He's not attached to the stem, but I'm going to make him attached to the stem because I'm just going to push some green color down there. And once I've got that green color on there and you look at this, you don't realize that it never was all the way over onto the stem. So that's what I mean by cover up and fill in and all of those good things. So again, just some quick color on here. And we're just going to go down the stem. I don't have to worry about this flower at all because I will be putting my other flower right over top of it. I do have to color in this little tiny yellow bud here though. So I'm just going to grab my yellow out again. So there, that's got some color on it. And you can see from the sample again, so they both have the color on it. So beautiful. And now we're going to get creative with Old Olive ink and a couple of different stamps. Make sure. Yes, that still is Old Olive ink. Okay, so along the bottom, there's so many little fun details. So we're going to use this row of like little open poppies, and we are going to stamp off. So I'm getting rid of some ink, and I'm using 2nd generation ink, and I'm coming over here and stamping on. So see how much lighter that is, which is nice. So again, I'm going to ink it up, stamp off that ink. Now, if you have another project that you can use that first bit of ink on, definitely go for it, you know, because if you're thinking, oh man, you're wasting ink, it's such a waste of ink, you can use it on something else and then use the second generation on this part. And then we're going to take this splotchy block, and this comes from the Painted Poppies stamp set. I love these kinds of different stamps, and we're actually going to use third generation ink. So count with me. We've got 1, 2, 3. So this one is going to be even lighter than this one, especially when it dries. So again, we're going to do a 1, 2, 3 over here, and one more. 1, 2, 3. So that is the third generation ink. So it just gives it that nice little, it fills in the white spots at the top, so it doesn't look super blank, but it's all green ink. This is all the same color ink, so it just goes together super, super nicely. Okay, so that was some generational stamping. We did some masking, some coloring. We've been doing all kinds of stuff tonight. Busy card, right? But lots of fun. And this is something where, like, I looked at the catalog, I picked out I'm like, oh, I love this Poppy card. This is a great card. And then I look into the details of how did they make it, and I'm like, wow, I had no idea that so much went into it. None of it's hard. It's just steps. All right, so this, and again, the glitter kind of gets everywhere, so just keep in mind I have glitter like all over the place. So this was my tone on tone, right? So it opens this way. You always want to make sure you know which way it's opening before you start putting on all of your layers. Now this piece right here goes on a little bit crooked, so I'm going to put it on this way so that the end of this is going to butt up against my card right here where it would open, and it's going to just kind of have that nice little tilt to it. This is a great technique if you are just not a fan of worrying about getting your layers on there straight. So here we go. I'm just going to focus on lining up this white part of the cardstock with the edge of my card first, and then just kind of letting the rest of it fall into place from there. You know, just want to make sure when you open it, it's not sticking out. If it was, you could definitely trim it. So I've got a nice little angle going on here. Bring in my card again so you can see it. And now we're just getting down to the nitty gritty. So let's bring in my little yellow poppies. So they have dried and they're not as curly anymore either. But I don't know if you can see the sparkle on that. That is just so cool. So these are going to come on here. Let's see this guy. I left a lot of paste on here. Now you can peel this, you know, kind of pull off some of this paste too if it's super thick. Almost like you would with spackle, like, right? You can finely sand, but you can kind of use your finger and pull a little bit off if you have a little bit more than you want on there. But you're going to see that this one's going to lay right over top of here. I used the big one and the medium one. Now again, in the sample in the catalog, they used 2 medium ones. I didn't realize that until I had mine almost done. And then I realized that I really liked it with the 3 different sizes. Now these guys are all going to have dimensionals on the back of them, so I'm just going to pull them off real quick and flip them over. You can fit a regular dimensional on the smallest one, and the other 2 are going to each have 2. Oh, these are funny. They're coming off of here weird. This one's not really on here. I think these dimensionals may have come from a paper pumpkin kit. And I don't know if you guys know this or not, but the paper pumpkin dimensionals are different from the ones that Stampin' Up! Sells. Like, you would think they would be the exact same, but they're a little bit different. And to be honest, I think that the ones that they sell are nicer. I like them better. These ones feel thicker and waxier and harder than the regular ones that you get. I don't think I have any big ones with me, but they're definitely of different caliber. So not all dimensionals are the same. And I'm going to say that's true of the ones that you would buy in any craft store or online as well. They're all going to be a little bit different. I mean, yes, they do the job, right? They all do the job. But, you know, just it's little things that you notice as a crafter that you're like, wow, that's totally different. I'm going to put the big flower on before I put the medium one on. So this is my big one right here. And I'm going to kind of try to get him off to the side. So you're going to see that he's flowing over here off of the white cardstock and right onto the outside green. And then this guy here, I'm just going to trying to create the illusion that not all of these stems are the same size, even though they really are pretty much the same height. If I put this guy down a little bit this way it makes it look like this one is a shorter stem. So it kind of gives it a better flow than if they were all straight across, all the same height. That would look a little odd, I think. Now, of course, this looks weird right now if you look at like, wow, how empty is the middle there? But we are going to be putting our sentiment on next, and that's almost the end of what we're doing here today too. So we're getting really close. I know we're pushing 8:30, but there was a lot going on with this card today. Now I just used 3 dimensionals for the sentiment. And life is better with a friend like you. I'm looking at the sample here. So I am not trying to keep my sentiment straight with my crooked paper. I'm trying to keep my sentiment straight with the bottom edge of the cardstock, if that makes sense, right? So I want it to be all the way over to the right side of my card, and I want it to also be trying to get straight here across, and I think I did a pretty good job. So there we go. There's our dimensional pieces right there. And the last thing I have to do here is add on some little brushed brass butterflies. These things are super fantastic. I didn't know that I would like them as much as I do. Anyone that just completed May mystery card with me, you know how these are fantastic, right? But they're very durable. They look like they're just gold sequins, basically, like really flat, but they're actually pretty thick. They're metal, and they're kind of durable, which is really awesome. I'm trying to decide where I want this one. I guess I'll go the same. So there we go. Life is better with a friend like you. So we've got our little butterflies on there, and just like that, I mean, they look pretty identical. So I think I did a pretty good job recreating those 2 cards. So there we have it. So tell me what you're thinking. And whew, we only went over by a little bit. I talked really fast tonight. Hi, Rhonda and Kathy. I'm just looking at comments. Jess, yes, thank you. It is a beautiful card. I really like this one. I tried to talk super fast because I knew I had a lot of ground to cover with a lot of different techniques and tips. I mean, we used the paste, we did some masking, we did some different die cuts. We had so much going on. But all in all, this is a really fun and fabulous card. Now, if you don't have the Poppies and you have other flower stamp sets, I encourage you to try this. Check it out. The Shimmery Embossing Paste is definitely a different beast than the what is this called? Wink of Stella. So this is Wink of Stella, right? So if you're familiar with Wink of Stella, this is a brush, and it's got a little bit of glitter in it, and you wipe it on and it leaves that little glittery shine. This is so different from the embossing paste that we just used. So obviously the Wink of Stella is super easy, and if you're not a fan of like the paste and a lot of glitter, I would go Wink of Stella. Definitely an easy way to go, but I will have some continued tips on how to use the paste and how to store the paste. So make sure you're checking out Positive Paper Crafters. I try to put a lot of information out there that you can use in any of your card making projects. So that's it for me. Remember, on Wednesday I'm going to have a color swap. I've already started working on it because when I have a little bit of time ahead, I just dive into the next colors that I'm going to share with you on Wednesday, so you get to vote to see which one you like better. So again, thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with me tonight. I really appreciate all of your comments. I love to read them and respond back to you. Thanks for joining me in my craft room. And until next Monday, stay inspired, create something beautiful, and share the love. Bye, everybody.